Jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I'd like to welcome you all to our Sunday Feast program at 212 Somerset Street East in Sandy Hill, the residence of our beloved Sri Sri Gaura Nitai. Welcome to all of you who are joining us again. I can see a lot of familiar faces on a regular basis, and if there's anybody here joining us for the first time, extra special welcome to you as well. So we just finished having kirtan right now. We're offering different paraphernalias to the lordships as a sign of greeting, love, welcoming, and followed by Nishinga Arti. And now we will have a presentation, a special presentation, and it will be about 30 to 45 minutes long, and followed with 10-15 minutes for discussion, questions, comments, and then to conclude the evening, we will have some more darshan of Sri Sri Gaura Nitai and a little more kirtan. So I will, before I get too ahead of myself here, I'd like to introduce my co-host for this evening, Mother Yeshika. She will introduce our guest speaker. Mother Yeshika, over to you.
Hare Krishna. There you go. I'd like to welcome everyone once again to our Sunday Feast program. For today, our guest speaker is His Grace Krsnadas Kaviraj Prabhuji. Prabhu got initiated by Srila Prabhupada, and he served in the Ottawa and Toronto temple since 1974. He's been married to his wife, Her Grace Purnami Devi Dasi, who's also initiated by Srila Prabhupada. And a fun fact I discovered is that Prabhuji always wears a Hare Krishna t-shirt even on the job as a respiratory therapist. So he's always sharing his spiritual wealth at every opportunity. He regularly performs Harinam Sankirtan on the streets in Toronto and makes regular appearances in His Holiness Bhakti Marg Maharaj's dramatic productions. He also serves the Sannyas Ministry as a member of the TASC, tasked for the assessment of Sannyas candidates. He's the present chair of the GBC Deputies and also serves on the board of directors for the Ottawa Temple, Toronto Temple, as well as some satellite temples in the Greater Toronto area. So once again, I'd like to welcome His Grace Krsnadas Kaviraj Prabhuji and hand it over to him. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Do we do Jai Radha Madhava? And if we do, would you mind doing it, Krishna Dulal, with your group there? I think it's probably the best way.
Sure, we can do Jai Radha Madhava, absolutely. Yeah, we could try. I just got to get the group together. Hold on a second. Group? 1 second. Okay, I've got my better half here is going to join me on
Very good. All right.
Here we go. Do Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brija Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Munatira Vanacharya Munatira Charya Munatira Vanacharya Munatira Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Giriraj Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava ki jai.
Hi. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitang Tang Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I feel really blessed to be here today, seeing, and anyone who can put on their videos and I can see your faces. It really helps, I think, the speaker to be able to see everyone's faces. And I'm seeing the wonderful faces of Sri Sri Gorni Tai on Anandamayi Prabhu's video. So that's great. They look absolutely gorgeous as usual. I've been serving their lordships. I served their lordships very soon after they were installed on the altar. I used to bathe and dress Gorni Tai in Ottawa quite often, and I carried them many times, from the temple room onto the bus. We drove them down to New Vrindavan. We drove them to Toronto when Prabhupada was in Toronto. So those Gorni ties have really gotten around quite a bit. And it's always just a wonderful pleasure to see them, because they are absolutely gorgeous. So thank you. So we are approaching Gaur Purnima, and Gaur Purnima, of course, being Lord Chaitanya's appearance day, brings to mind, so many of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. But I wanted to speak today really about, and when we talk about Lord Chaitanya and his associates, most of the pastimes, every one of the pastimes, practically speaking, are harmonious, enlivening, and enthusiastic, spiritual exchanges that are just nectar to the ears. And we, as in ISKCON, are carrying on the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we follow in the disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so we also should be always experiencing that ecstasy and bliss in the association of our God brothers and God sisters. And so unfortunately, though, because we are in the material world, occasionally there are frictions between the devotees. And so I kind of wanted to just touch on it today to try to help us to overcome those frictions, so that we will be able to enter into the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a more purified state. If we are approaching Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and the Panchatattva and all the assembled devotees, and we have some difficulties with some other devotees, or we have some grudges against devotees like that, it will be very difficult to actually achieve our goal of attaining the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and being accepted into the fold of the Vaishnavas that surround Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that is our goal in life, is that we want to be accepted by the Lord and his devotees. So we have to do perhaps a little bit of internal cleansing, internal understanding, and hopefully uplifting ourselves to the point where we can, of course, it's not really up to us. It is absolutely Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda's mercy that we can ever approach them. But we have to at least try to be as pure as we can, so that we accept the mercy that is offered to us. So we know that occasionally devotees will say something to one another or do something to one another, perhaps unknowingly, but sometimes knowingly, and it will hurt another devotee. And that devotee feels some pain and discomfort. And we know that that is not the natural state of the spirit soul. The spirit soul is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. So, and we are Aham Brahmasmi, we are the spirit soul. So how is it that sometimes we feel pain and discomfort due to somebody else's actions? Why does that happen? And we will try to sort of analyze that today. The root cause of our pain and our suffering in the material world, Krishna really lays it out in the Bhagavad Gita, that everything arises from our misconception of being a material body. So it's that ahankar, that false ego, that makes us identify with a particular intellectual outlook on life, and gets us to also have a particular mental outlook on life. So we have that intelligence, the mind, And and then we have all the other material energies, the ether, the air, the fire, the water, and the earth that cover our material selves. But the root cause that really makes the spirit soul, which is Satchidananda Vigraha, always blissful, experience a painful situation, is that misidentification with the material body. So how is it that we can, so if we are, what happens is, so an anatomy of the anatomy of an offense is when somebody picks on a particular part of our material body. So they may hit us in some, slap us across the face or something. So that's hitting our, material, one of the earth, water, fire, air, ether coverings. Or somebody may attack us for what we mentally are thinking about. Or we may attack our intellectual understanding of different things and say, you're crazy, you're nuts, what are you thinking, like that. And so if we're identifying with that outlook, then we become offended. We think, oh, how is it that you can say that what I'm thinking is wrong? But if it's in the material realm, if it's something to do with the material world, in that I am intellectually thinking about well, let's say, for example, right now, there's the COVID going on, COVID situation, and there are different viewpoints. Different devotees are thinking about taking the vaccine or not taking the vaccine. And some people even go as far as to say you're crazy to take it or not to take it. But that's an individual choice. And then there are other, some people will say, no, we should be trying to do this Ayurvedically, or we should be doing it allopathically. Or some people will say, no, you can actually do both approaches. So that, there's all these different ways in which we can look at this particular situation. And sometimes devotees get so entrenched in their intellectual states that they say another person's intellectual state is wrong and they shouldn't be speaking like this. And they get really upset. They get really emotionally involved and emotionally invested to the point where I don't want to hear what you have to say, and I don't want to ever talk to you again. And the other person becomes really offended. Oh, what did I do? Well, I don't want to speak to you again. And then a big grudge happens between the two. So, but it's because we're identifying with these different material notions, right? I mean, that COVID has nothing to do with the spirit soul, has nothing to do with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, has nothing to do with whether or not we are going back to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gaurnitai or Krishna, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, like that, or whether we serve Srila Prabhupada. It has everything to do with our material identification. And Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion, Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatpratvena nirmalam. So Sarvopadi, the upadis, these designations that we have, whether or not, just for example, somebody may offend me or think they're offending me by saying, oh, I'm a Polak. Actually, Krishna Dulal can probably relate to that one. Because my dad was Polish, but it has nothing, I have nothing to do with being Polish. I mean, I'm not my mother was Scottish, so I'm not a Canadian, Scottish, Polish devotee. I am just a devotee, right? And we should all just really try to remember that. And when we operate in that way on the spiritual platform, then the designation becomes diminished to the point where we can get rid of it altogether. And it is really a matter of functioning on the spiritual platform. So how do we function on the spiritual platform? Well, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Vandam, offering prayers, all those things, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, and everything else. Those are the ways in which we actually function as a spirit soul. So the more that we engage in those activities, gradually we become removed from the designations. And really, some people may think, well, he's an intelligent devotee, but what does that mean? Is it somebody who may be not endowed with great intelligence, who can't remember any verses, who can't even read sometimes? Does that mean that they are disqualified in any way from being a devotee or from engaging in the activities of devotional service? No. So really saying that somebody's an intelligent devotee is labeling them according to some material consideration. I mean, granted, you may go, well, I'd rather hear a class from an intelligent devotee than from somebody who can't speak. So that may be one way of looking at things. But at the same time, we have to understand that actually that devotee still may have great realizations, but they just can't articulate them as well as the intelligent devotee, as the so-called intelligent devotee. So what we really have to do is get away from thinking about a devotee in material terms in any way, male, female, whatever. I mean, not that, of course, Srila Prabhupada said still the men have to stand on one side of the temple room and the women on the other and like that. But we understand that those differences are there, but ultimately the differences are not there. So we have to come to the platform of working on the spiritual platform and understanding that everybody else and looking at everybody else as though they are on the spiritual platform already. And then we can actually advance in Krishna consciousness. And when I said that, look at them as though they are on the spiritual platform already. So Lord Chaitanya says, Trinadapi sunichena tarori vasihishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So everybody is more advanced than myself. Everybody is serving Krishna more than I am. And I need to just remember that I am the servant of everybody. Lord Chaitanya didn't say just the devotees, that you need to offer respect just to the devotees. But he said, no, you have to, offer respect to everyone. And we have to be more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. We've just gone through the winter, and we know that the trees have been out there standing in the cold, and they just stand there and they take it in the cold. And in the summer, they stand there in the hot sun and they take it. Sometimes it doesn't rain. Last summer here in Lindsay, it didn't rain for almost 7 or 8 weeks, and the trees just stand there and they take it. What can they do? But we think that sometimes if something happens to us, we have to react to it. But no, Lord Chaitanya is saying we should be more tolerant than the tree. So we have to learn to just accept what comes our way as Krishna's mercy. There's one time a devotee was prior to them even becoming a devotee. We know that Peter Burwash, who was a Canadian professional tennis player, he was very much attracted by the philosophy and came to the temple in Toronto when Srila Prabhupada was in Toronto. And when he was with Srila Prabhupada, I think he had left his jacket down in the temple room. And When he went to get his jacket, the wallet was gone. Somebody had taken his wallet, and it had, fair bit of cash in it. In those days, there were practically no credit cards. Everything was done with cash, and so he was somewhat upset, of course, and so he went up to Srila Prabhupada and said, somebody took my wallet, and Srila Prabhupada said to him that we must not, let me just get this correctly, do not be upset with the instrument of your karma. Now, isn't that an interesting statement? Things happen to us sometimes, and we think that the person caused it, who hit me or took my money or offended my family or whatever, it's like they caused it. But these are actually, everybody is often in the material world, everybody is acting as an instrument of karma for somebody else. Sometimes we give somebody money and we help them and make them feel good. And so we're acting as an instrument of their good karma. Or sometimes we may inadvertently step on an ant or something like that, and that's their bad karma, So we are always acting in that role of being in somebody's karma. Of course, when we're giving and talking about devotional service and talking about the instructions of Sri Krishna, then we're actually outside of the realm of karma. We're actually delivering people from their karma. And when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're delivering ourselves and others from their karma. So when we go out on the street and we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're actually delivering people from their karma. That's why Srila Prabhupada called it the highest welfare work. So we have to learn to not become upset with the instruments of our karma. So if right now any of us are feeling a grudge against anybody, feeling that this devotee has hurt me in some way, they didn't thank me for something, or they blamed me for something, or whatever it may be, we have to understand that devotee is really just an instrument of my karma, and I can't be upset with them because it's my karma. How can I be upset with that person? Now, that takes a little bit of advancement maybe to come to that stage, but the more we practice trying to see everyone around us as an instrument of my karma, then we can become much more accepting of everything that's happening to us, because it is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, especially as we are devotees. Just listened recently to Shivaram Maharaj talking about his COVID situation. And one of the questions that a devotee asked was, how is it that you, being a devotee, were able to get sick? And of course, he replied that this is having a material body means that you have karma. And that as a devotee, oftentimes Srila Prabhupada would say that our karma is actually reduced, even though it may be something that even kills us. That is actually still the special mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether he takes us out of this body or leaves us in this body. That is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and he said that one time, if somebody cuts themselves in the kitchen with a knife, say, and cuts their finger, they may have been scheduled by karma to die at that moment, but instead of death, they only received that small cut, because Krishna is cleansing the karma in that way. He's reducing the karma, but still, it still has to be felt in some way so that we get that. And every bit of karma that we feel, so whether it's a pain and discomfort from a sickness or an injury, or mental anguish or sadness, all these different emotions, these sort of negative emotions that we feel, are all coming to us by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to help us remember that we are Satchit Ananda. We have nothing to do with these things, nothing to do with, getting old and having our loved ones die, or dying ourselves, or getting sick, or all those things. And the more that it motivates us, it should motivate us then to actually become more involved in our devotional practices, chanting our 16 rounds and reading and understanding our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, developing our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our karma actually becomes a motivating factor. It's pushing us, become a better devotee, get onto the spiritual platform, come to the point where you will be having a material body, but you will be completely detached from it. Srila Prabhupada did explain that it becomes like a coconut. When the coconut falls from the tree in the husk and it dries out eventually, you can shake it and the coconut is loose inside. So in the same way, when we really become mature in our devotional service and we become fully attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the things that happen to our material body do not affect us. So Srila Prabhupada was able to, we saw the final lesson. I don't know if anybody has seen that recently or seen it at all, but Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan on the last days, still speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam, translating the Srimad Bhagavatam right to the very end, barely able to talk, unable to move, very emaciated body and everything. But because he was completely devoted to Krishna, he's like that coconut in the husk, completely outside of that experience. So externally, that was the only way he could communicate, speaking the Bhagavatam through the body like that. But he was detached from all that pain and suffering, and really showed us that this is the proper way to leave one's body. Now, of course, we may not all get that same type of situation where we have a condition that leads to a gradual death. I mean, we know that some devotees have died very suddenly. I mean, just recently, Bhakti Churu Maharaj was taken by COVID. And that is a very more or less untimely death in a way that he would have been intubated. He wouldn't have been able to chant. He would have been highly medicated, and it's a very different situation than Srila Prabhupada's situation. But it's there by the mercy of Krishna. It's all there by the mercy of Krishna. I know that the devotees had recordings. They were able to be in touch with the healthcare providers and made sure that Bhakti Churu Maharaj always had Srila Prabhupada tapes and everything playing at his bedside with kirtan and lectures and things. So there's all kinds of different ways we can end up leaving our body, but we just need to remember that we should not be upset by these material goings on. When I was working at the hospital for sick children, I occasionally saw people of different faiths say, how can God be doing this to my child? Why is he taking, if their child was dying or just died, sometimes they completely broke down and said, why is God doing this? There must be no God. Otherwise, he couldn't do this to me because I pray to God every day. And how can he do this to me? But it's the material world. Things happen. And sometimes horrible things happen. But if we always remember that it's a lesson to get out of this material world. We've gone through so many family separations, deaths, births, deaths, old age, diseases happening to us, happening to our relatives in all kinds of different bodies. We've had all those different situations. And it hopefully has brought us to the point today where we've come to the Hare Krishna movement and become a devotee because we want to leave all that behind. We want to get away from all that pain, all that suffering, all that material entanglement, and just hold on to the lotus feet of our guru, Srila Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. That is the way out of this material world, and to become really free from all those interactions which are causing us so much difficulty. So, you know, when we're having those difficulties and grudges, we also have to come to the point of forgiveness. Srila Prabhupada said that there are many embarrassing moments in the material world, and one has to become very forgiving. Otherwise, you know, one will have a vindictive nature. So vindictive means, you know, very upset with everything around us, and just not wanting to listen to anything that's going on, and not to take any good instruction, and just give it all up. I want to walk away from it all, including devotional service, because I can't forgive. And oftentimes, if we can't forgive, then we are maintaining ourselves in an offensive state. The first offense against the chanting of the holy name is to blaspheme devotees of the Lord who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name. So that if we're thinking, I don't like this devotee because they did this to me, then we're maintaining ourselves in a platform of offensiveness. And that platform doesn't exist in the spiritual world. There's no place for that unforgiving nature in the spiritual world. That can only happen here by our material consciousness. So we really have to understand that if I don't come to the point of forgiving that person, then I will not be able to enter into the pastimes of Sri Sri Gaurnitai and Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. I will never be able to. So we have to forgive. We have to say, all right, they are just being the instruments of my karma, so I forgive them. If we come to that point, then we can actually become more purified. We can chant, we'll be committing fewer offenses against the holy name, and we hopefully will be able to develop a taste for the holy name and begin to get out of this material nature and achieve our relationship with Sri Sri Gaurnitai and Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. So I think I may stop there and open it up for any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So devotees, if you have some questions, feel free to raise your hand in the chat feature there. There's a reactions button at the bottom. You can click it and press on raise hand, and you can ask your questions or make your comments. Oh, we have Mother Ann. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for your lecture. There was so many excellent points and things that we can start applying right now, or do better, or anyway, to increase our general well-being and harmony with what happens to us. But I would like to clarify something, because I understand that we should be detached from what happens to us, and that what happens to us is due to our past karma, well, past, present karma. and the importance of forgiveness. But on the other end, from what I was able to understand, most of the responsibility still rests on the devotee who received the harm. I'll say it this way just by lack of better word. But on the other side, I wonder, what is it not de-responsibilizing the devotee who caused harm, for example?
Well,
I don't know if my question is clear.
yeah, I think so.
I
Well,
like to think, please go ahead.
I'll just kind of make sure that I'll clarify the question in that we should accept responsibility, but is there also some responsibility on the part of the person who may have committed an offense? Is that your question? Yeah, and I mean, and there is definitely responsibility on their part, but that's not for us to give the result of that responsibility to them. You see, it becomes a vicious circle if we hold that grudge and keep from forgiving them, then it's a continual offense to them, and there's more likelihood that there will be continuous offense from them, right? So it makes it a worse. It makes it a bigger circle and a more involved interaction. So somebody has to break it, and so it really boils down to, why don't I do it? And in fact, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj wrote in one of his books one time, there are 4 principles of community building. And one of the things that he wrote, one of those 4, is I accept full responsibility for any difficulty that I'm having with another individual. So we need to accept that full responsibility. Even though, yeah, I mean, Krishna will, if they, after we sort of say, look, I accept full responsibility, I'm really sorry, it's, I don't know if you've ever heard that story about, I think it was Brigu Muni, and somebody asked, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And so he sort of said, okay, well, I'll go and check it out, And so first, I think he went to, there were 3 different kinds of offenses. Help me out if I'm telling this story wrong. I haven't actually told it in a long, long time. But he committed an offense of the mind. He thought badly about somebody. And I think it was Lord Brahma. And, Lord Brahma became upset with him, thinking badly about him like that. And then there was another time when he actually spoke out loud about Lord Shiva. Oh, you're just, you live in crematoriums and you associate with very people in the mode of ignorance and things like that. And so, Lord Shiva was somewhat offended. And then he went to Lord Vishnu, and the most grievous offense is actually the physical, harm. And he actually kicked Lord Vishnu in the chest. And Lord Vishnu immediately bowed down and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Did you hurt your foot?" And so then he surmised, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, I may have completely mashed that story, but the point being that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, when he was kicked, he said, "Did I hurt your foot?" He was more concerned about the other one. So in the same way, if somebody commits an offense to us, we have to accept full responsibility and say, is there any way that I can help fix this, Prabhu? What can I do to, repair our relationship? How can I make this better? Even though we may be thinking that it happened, that they did something to us, we have to be able to be the ones to break the vicious cycle of offense and non-forgiveness that is a vicious cycle which will go on and on and on and can get worse and worse and worse. And what does it do? It just keeps you from making any spiritual advancement. But as soon as we break that cycle by saying, I take full responsibility and I want to make this better, then Krishna goes, this person is my devotee. And now he'll be more welcome. Once he gets a little more purified, he'll be more welcome to come into the spiritual world. So does that answer the question?
Perfectly. Yes, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So next we have Matthew Prabhu, followed by Surendra Prabhu. Go ahead, Matthew Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I guess I'll be continuing in the same vein and maybe pushing even maybe a bit more to see because I like what you said about responsibility because I think it's an important principle. But when you were speaking earlier about patience and tolerance, I was also thinking that there is a danger in taking that approach. Although it's completely valid, and I think the point of forgiveness is essential. But it can open up people and a community even to abuse at the extreme, but sometimes just to be tolerant sometimes doesn't help the situation and actually makes it worse for oneself, but also for others. So it doesn't break the pattern. The pattern will remain in place if it's not addressed in one way or another. So it becomes a challenge. But I think I'll take the example of Arjuna, who really wasn't inclined to go to war and face with the facts of the situation. His inclination was to take that humble approach. So I think it's interesting how Bhagavad Gita is our kind of, our most quoted reference, or our basic reference, but it does bring this point up. So I kind of want to see also how can we take responsibility, which sometimes means doing something. There's a book that says having those hard conversations, which are necessary also for ourselves, but maybe also for others to be able to make spiritual progress. So I'd like to hear maybe how to deal with those difficult situations.
So you're thinking that if the community sort of starts to know about a grudge between two devotees or something, that it can sort of spread that poison. Is that kind of the question, or?
It could be that, but it could be even simply between, let's say, even in a household, a husband and wife, and something might happen, and there might be conflict there. So one approach is for both or either of them just to ignore the situation and just to pretend it never happened, or to just be tolerant and accept it. But over time, it's like a ticking time bomb. So the situation doesn't improve. Whereas if it was addressed, then everyone could live happily more quickly and actually learn from the situation. That's just a practical example, but it's sometimes being tolerant can maybe not fix something that could be fixed and would be more beneficial.
Right. Actually, it's a good point that you bring up. In a marriage relationship, especially, it's oftentimes can be very contentious, and there can be difficulties arising from different opinions on things, and how devotees do things, or what they want to do. So and if it keeps happening all the time, then or if it breaks down into really a yelling match, I want to do it this way, no, I want to do it that way, and it becomes very, very contentious, then it can be very destructive for the relationship. So you're right that and there are methods that are developed by marriage counselors and everything, whereby once one begins to start going down that road of getting into an argument and getting into a fight within a marriage, then there can sometimes be ways to sort of break that off stop that from happening. And generally it is by one of the two saying, all right, okay, I back off. But at the same time, saying, there should be an outlet to address that issue later on once the tempers have settled down, right? So within a marriage, especially, it's really important to have that ability to possibly have a contentious thing happen, but then be able to talk about it later in a less contentious way. Now, it's not easy, but there are many books on it, and there are counselors that can help with it and everything else. So that can go on. But your question also brought, I think, one point that I possibly didn't make was that, if somebody is witness to somebody else being offended, I can remember even in Ottawa one time, I was out at Bell's Corners doing Sankirtan in front of a plaza. This was actually the night before we were going to drive down to New Vrindavan for me to get initiated. So it was back in 1974. And I was in front of a plaza, and I was out there, and I was asking people to, take a Back to Godhead magazine and give a donation, or give a donation and take a Back to Godhead magazine, whichever way. I would ask it in different ways according to how I felt the person would react. And so this one person I said, hey, can you give, everybody's given something to help, can you throw in something? And the guy threw in 25 cents. And in those days, we were getting the Back to Godhead magazines for about 15 cents a copy. And they were beautiful magazines. And he threw in 25 cents. So if anybody threw in a quarter or more, we would give them a Back to Godhead. So I said, oh, and here's a magazine. And I just put it in. They both, him and his wife, both had bags full of groceries. So I just slid the magazine in the bag of groceries, and they walked off. I kept going for a little while. Within about 5 minutes, he came back from the car going, and I just heard, I was talking to somebody, and I heard from behind me this guy go, Hare Krishna. It was like, what? And all of a sudden, this guy grabbed me. I had a tie and a shirt on and a hat, over my bald head. And he just grabbed my tie, ripped my shirt, threw me across the front of a car, and was like, I want my money back. And I was like, I just said, there were a lot of people now sort of gathering around going, what's going on? And I held up my hands and I just said, hey, you've already given your money to charity. I can't, it was in a can, right? So I can't get the money. I can't give you back the money. I'm sorry. It's like, it's done deal. And he's going, no, you got to give me your money, that money back. I'm not giving any money to no Hare Krishnas. He kept saying the holy name, And then just at that moment, Balakrishna Prabhu, who lives out in Sharanagati, I don't know, many of you know him. He's not very tall. Balakrishna is not very tall. And back then he was not a farmer either. So he really was not, he's quite strong now because he's been doing a lot of farming and everything. But back then he was more like your typical Hare Krishna devotee, not working out or anything, and didn't have a lot of muscle on her and anything. And so he was shorter than this guy, smaller than this guy, but he just came right over, grabbed hit the guy's shoulder, the guy sort of stumbled back a little bit, and he just pushed him right off me and just started yelling, get your hands off of him, and leave him alone and get out of here. And the wife started grabbing the guy. Oh, okay, dear, let's go, let's forget it, and Balakrishna was like, yeah, you leave him alone, he's only out here trying to serve God, and like that. And so the wife eventually dragged the guy away, and it was time for me to be, I'd been out there since about 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was now 8 o'clock at night, and so Balakrishna just came, Krishna allowed him to be there right at the right moment. So point of the story is, when you see somebody being offended by somebody else, a devotee being offended by somebody else, that's when anger is appropriate. And so, and in the case of Arjuna, as you brought up, Krishna realized that if Yudhisthira was not on the throne, then everybody in the world, Duryodhan probably would have been a good material king, but he would not have directed people in the sense of going back home, back to Godhead, because he himself felt that Krishna was just a rascal, right? And so because of that, he would have misdirected the entire world, right? So Krishna basically told Arjuna, you have to utilize your anger to serve me, and you've got to go and do your duty, and just do your duty. Don't be attached to the result. I'll take care of that. I'll make sure that it comes out right in the end, whatever happens. You just have to go do your duty. So Arjuna went, took his anger and used it in Krishna's service, and won the battle of Kurukshetra, along with his brothers and quite a few others. But he was one of the definitely the one of the strongest in the battle, and defeated so many others that it even taught him how to fight. So it was that's when you can utilize anger in the service of Krishna and stop an offense from happening to a whole lot of people. Like the whole planet would have been offended if Duryodhan had ended up the king. So Krishna just arranged that that's not going to happen, and my devotee is going to take the credit, and he's going to wipe out everybody. And Arjuna, do you want to do it or do you not want to do it? And that's the whole Bhagavad Gita. And so we also understand that the people are going to suffer in the material world. Everybody's going to suffer. They're all going to be offended by something that happens in the material world. And what can we do? We can just go out there and do our duty, right? We just approach them, try to give them Krishna in whatever way we can, give them some prasadam, give them a book, talk to them in some way, help them in some way, get them to understand that being a devotee is part of the solution to their problems. And when that happens, then we've actually, decreased the amount of offense that's going to happen to them. And so we just got to do our duty. Does that answer the question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just for time. So we have one more question. We have Surendra Prabhu. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Surendra. How are you? Hi.
My question is, I think as your title says, is that the insult to devotee. So the question comes, who is a devotee? And for here, if I take that anyone who comes to the temple to take a darshan of a deity is a devotee, basically. And one thing is between two known people, for example, between me and Krishna Dalal, if something happens, we are regular devotees. But then there could be case where a person is coming to the temple and he's just initial new person. And it's a new devotee, and there has to be some tolerance here and there. But one silly mistake has been shut down and be sent back home, basically. And the devotee is lost. Mm. And so the question is, our objective should be to send people home or to retain them and tolerate their initial discomforts. And we are not talking about the sometimes we have beggars or a little bit underprivileged people. Those are different. Mm. If they commit mistakes, I think it is bad on us to punish them because we cannot tell anything to them. But right. We are talking about professionals, doctors, engineers, and these guys come and one silly thing here and there, something, and from a Vyasa-san, something is said and the guy is gone for good. Mm-hmm. If he comes back again, the person will never stop and then he's gone for good after 2-3 times.
Right.
How as a leader, how will you address that issue? I mean, it's never happened to me. I mean, it's not that me. I want to clarify,
Right,
but
right.
it's been experienced multiple times. So how should we address this? Because it's very sad that some devotees working on the streets very hard to bring people to the temple, and then they've been sent home.
I think we have to follow the example of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada himself worked very hard to get people, anybody to listen to what he had to say in the early days. And the people that came, at first they didn't know anything about the etiquette or anything. Even after they became devotees for a while, when they were getting up for Mangal Artik in the morning, they would often, there was a lineup for the bathroom, and Srila Prabhupada would just stand at the back of the line. It wasn't like, oh, Srila Prabhupada, go ahead. No, it was just like, okay, we've all got to get up and shower, so it's my turn now, and the Prabhupada would just stand there, and Prabhupada would serve the prasadam. So Prabhupada was welcoming in every single way he could. He even took up the service of those people. So if there's something that we say that offends those people, that's our fault. And we really do need to try to understand that we've got to be as welcoming as we possibly can. That Krishna Dulal, I don't know if you were involved recently in that North American summit thing that they had, were you involved on your day with the temple?
Yes, Prabhu.
Councils and presidents, right? And probably maybe even a few of you were involved in that. One of the things that came up today was that every time somebody comes to the temple for the first time, or even after that, it should be the most welcoming, enlivening, and happy experience that they've had ever, so that it becomes as though they were meeting their dear friend Krishna, their eternal friend Krishna, for the first time. That's how we should try to make everybody feel when they come to the temple. Completely welcome, completely. We need to become their servants in so many ways. And so we should never chastise somebody to the point of alienating them. It's described that it's a well-known fact, even in management, that you cannot chastise somebody for doing something unless you have a relationship with that person. If you do not have a relationship with that person, don't start just blasting them, telling them what to do. You have to understand who they are, what motivates them, how they understand things, what they're trying to do, like that, and then you can actually give them some instruction. So it's the same way in Krishna consciousness. We need to understand that this person is a spirit soul, and according to their coverings, they may offend, they may make some mistake, and they may do things wrong, but we have to be very tolerant of that as well. So Surinder Prabhu, I think that answers the question, that we've really got to just understand that if we send somebody away and get them to think that, oh, I'm never coming back to the Hare Krishna temple because it's not part of my solution to my problem. And really, what is the problem for everybody? It's that we're in the material world. And really, what is the solution for it? It's to get out of the material world. And so if we have somehow or other pushed them out the door, I mean, they may have to, if they're living in Toronto, the chances of them coming into contact with another disciplic succession and a line of pure devotees, is practically nil, right? So we've really doomed them to death, for a long, long time. So we have to be very, very careful to make sure that we don't ever do that. We got to be so tolerant. Does that answer the question? Okay, thank you. A thumbs up. Very good.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I was actually thinking about. I was reflecting on. You were speaking about this forgiveness and tolerance and the anatomy of insults, etc. And the examples of marriage couples were given too. And and I thought, like devotees, we all feel, somebody may say something unknowingly, and we'll get this. And I even feel myself that there's something internally that's brewing. You have an interaction with a certain devotee or with your wife, and you just don't feel good about it, right? And there's that fear of, oh, I've really blown it, or oh, this is really troublesome right now. And but I guess if we really cultivate the spirit of continually trying to forgive and work on relationships, see that's the problem in society. A lot of people just find relationships disposable. So they have a relationship and it doesn't work, and then like to hell with you.
Right.
That's it. I don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
And
Too many divorces.
too many divorces, and families don't have such a, I guess, the luxury to be able to do that, although they do, right? To split up whenever there's a problem. But within a family, you have to deal with certain issues, and if you want to overcome them, that means one or both of you have to really buckle down and try to find a solution. And that can be extended to our larger family community, which is the temple with all of the devotees that are there. It's reassuring to know that we hear from our scriptures that, hey, you just have to keep on working on it. You got to keep on trying those relationships. You're going to make offenses. It's just natural. It's a human nature to do so. You need to ask for forgiveness. You need to practice that. I was just thinking, as you were saying that, there's actually a verse in the Bible, in Matthew. Jesus says that church members should forgive each other 70 times, 70 times. So it's 1822. It's a number that symbolizes boundlessness.
Right.
That was his spirit, right? Because some people ask, well, how many times can you forgive, really? How many times? It was first time, second time, third time, you're out, right? But Jesus say, and our acharyas say that you have to constantly cultivate that spirit. If you don't, then that's where it gets hard. That's when it gets the heart hardens, right? And that's when it's really hard to see, really.
Yeah. And really it's inflicting pain upon oneself. To have that grudge within oneself, you feel bad just carrying it around. It's not a healthy, happy feeling. People that carry grudges often get cancer, they say, because of that grudge. It can actually have a physical effect on the body. So it just going to cause more pain. And if you really just go, that person, it's really not their fault. I can accept responsibility for this, and I'm going to let it go and forgive them like that. Then oftentimes it's like this huge weight. I've done it myself sometimes. It's just this huge weight. And if you have done something to somebody else, if you can go to them and say, I am so sorry, Prabhu. I really blew it totally. I said the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing. Just forgive me, please, please, please. I will try to serve you, or even just start serving them. If you don't have the type of relationship where you can verbally go to them, then perhaps just try to do something for them, even unknowingly. Give them some prasadam, or make sure that they get some maha sent to their house somehow or other, or something like that. Just do something that they won't even know it's you, but you're doing it for them. And then gradually that relationship will mend. But if we don't let go, and if we don't forgive, and if we then we're doomed. we doom ourselves. So
Yes, thank you so much. And I always recall, it's just such a inspiring time when you, Prabhu, I'm always remember every year you come, and Canada Day or whenever we have a Harinam, it's yourself and Gora Prabhu and Lakshmanath Prabhu, and you just with the spirit of surrender, of going, enthusiasm, encouragement. It's always there. I remember when we go on Harinam, it's I'd say that I'm younger, right, and I should have a stamina, but we always try our best to see if we can keep up with you, because you're always leading such an example. So we're very fortunate to have you join us today and speaking with us. And oh, Surinder Prabhu wanted to add something. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I think those enthusiastic days may be numbered.
What I want to add is that this marriage thing gone a little bit too far here, and I think it's a spicy topic to discuss. So I said I should add something to this. This question was asked to one of the, and I will take 5 minutes for this, so I think that is okay. What question was asked to one of the Radhanath Maharaj's disciple in the audience, probably 5,000. And the gentleman asked, I have a problem with my wife and how to, not problem, but he said, how to deal the situation, with the wife and at home and children and this and that. And then I do not remember exactly whether he was quoting Jaiva Dharma or some other book, but he said that everything has to do with the type of relationship you have. And he says there are 3 types of relationship as per our acharyas. Within anybody, anywhere in the world, regardless of husband, wife, or 2 devotees, or a new devotee coming to the temple, he says the lowest relationship is called parthiv. And parthiv basically derived from patthar. Patthar means stone. And when you see the dead body, so the dead means parthiv, and body means sharir. So the parthiv sharir means a dead body. So one of the relationship, which is the lowest, is called parthiv relationship. In that, I, me, mine, whether my desires are fulfilled or not, I got this or not, I have this or not, that's the lowest level of relationship. Then we know now what is this basically. It's as good as a stone, no feelings. That's why it's called parthiv. Second type of relationship is called Swargiya Ras. They call it Swargiya Ras. Swargiya means something to do heavenly. I mean, I do not know exactly what will be the translation, but the name is Swargiya Ras. In that Swargiya Ras, the relationship is more of on a passion side. My family and my people, and that they are happy and I want to serve them and their needs are fulfilled. I don't care about anyone else. That's the middle one. And then there is another relationship, which is the top one, is called Vaikuntha Ras. He says in the Vaikuntha Ras, there is no personal motive. And the point of whether I get along well with the other one is completely overlooked. That point itself doesn't exist there. That I have a relationship with some other person. You have a relationship, but it is secondary because you are so much involved in the Hari Seva, the relationship is automatically maintained, whether it could be stumbling or something, but your mentality will be developed in such a way that you will keep on overlooking, and basically you will be continuously busy in the serving. And this could be with the husband wife also, this could be between father son also, this could be between me and Krsnadas also, 2 friends also, everywhere, with me and Matthew Prabhu, anyone basically. So I thought that I will just mention these 3 types of relationship because we are talking quite a lot here, and it's a God's relationship is the biggest one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very pertinent points. Yeah, that Vaikuntha Ras, that's what we all need to aim for, is that we always want to be the das anudas, so the servant of the servant of the servant. And even if somebody, we need to start trying to have, the Paramahansa sees everybody as servant. The Madhyama Adhikari sees different people at different levels of service, but they all are potential servants. And so therefore he treats them all as servants also. And the very neophyte devotee, he's thinking, this person is not a devotee, that this person is a devotee, like that makes these distinctions. So we really do have to try to come to that Madhyama Adhikari platform and see that everybody's a potential devotee. In fact, when Lord Chaitanya was asked who is a devotee, he said, anybody who once utters the name Krishna, they don't even have to come for darshan, they don't have to take prasadam, they don't have to do anything. If somebody out on the street, you just go, hey, Hare Krishna, and they go, oh, what's that, Krishna? Oh yeah, as soon as somebody does that, they're a devotee. That's why when we go out on Harinam or anything, even somebody may walk by, they may not say the holy name there, but they might go home and they go, hey, I saw a bunch of Hare Krishnas on the street today. All of a sudden they're chanting, right? So we open that opportunity up by being out there, and just that was one of the things that made so many devotees in the beginning of ISKCON, was that we were constantly out there, on the street corners. It's like people just thought those Hare Krishnas are everywhere. And we haven't been doing that so much lately, but we've really got to try to get back to that. I was thinking even in the summertime, possibly. Of course, it may be a little tricky with depending upon how COVID goes, but I often sit on my front porch and I chant Hare Krishna, and I do talk to people going by, and I sometimes distribute the odd book. But I'm thinking now I'll actually go out there and set up a book table right on my front porch, right on the edge of my lawn, that right up against the sidewalk, and have a little book table and just sit there and chant my japa out there with the books out, and people will come, hey, what's this, and maybe I'll distribute one book all summer, maybe I'll distribute 10, 20, who knows, maybe I'll start distributing hundreds. I mean, not that many people walk down my street, but at least I'm out there, and people will go, hey, this guy's a Hare Krishna, but he seems like a nice guy. And I was thinking I'd have a book table and some prasadam, like some cookies or something, so that people will just think, hey, this guy's pretty good. He's handing out free food. And I think we all have to somehow or other, even, in the age of Kali, we're not responsible for our bad thoughts. So we may think something bad and something lusty or whatever, and we're not really responsible for that. We're not going to get any karma for that. But if you think about something that you want to do in devotional service, like at some point in my life, I want to open a temple, or I want to build an altar, or I want to really cook a nice offering, or whatever it is, meditating on that service, we do get the good reaction to that. Krishna takes that as being devotional service. So we've got to constantly meditate. And when you think about all those things, where the attention flows, the energy goes. So if we're constantly thinking about what I want to do for Krishna, eventually we'll start doing more and more for Krishna. It's just going to happen. And then we'll be ultimately more happy in whatever we do. So
Thank you so much, Prabhu. It's really wonderful. This could probably continue on for hours, more hours. I think devotees, you can see the enthusiasm on Zoom here. So we'll have to have you back, hopefully, for a round 2 at some point. I hope you will accept our invitation again. I'm
really looking forward to, when this whole COVID thing's over. I've already had my first vaccine. And, I'm looking forward to being able to, come up and see Gornitai and see all the devotees and have a Sunday feast and, be able to sit down afterwards and everybody can sit around and we can just, have a real good exchange of ideas and everything. Surendra's idea and all the different, Matthews and Ann's and everybody's, input and, we can really churn things around, churn the milk.
And we can go hopefully on Harinam together.
Yes, yes. That would be wonderful. I've been looking, at one time I had a picture of, we went on Harinam, and I've mentioned this to a few devotees. I don't know if I've mentioned it in a class, but we went on Harinam on the Rideau Canal on skates. And, we had about 5 or 6 of us. One of the devotees was playing mridanga. We had 2 devotees playing kartals and leading, and it was a nice kirtan. There was probably about 5 or 6 of us. but people loved it. I'm telling you, everybody was like, "Hey, there's the Hare Krishnas on skates." You know, it was like, and we weren't all wearing dhotis and stuff because it's cold, right? But I mean, they just loved it. You know, it was incredible. It was like, so hey, the Hare Krishnas on skates. Everybody was chanting that day. It was really ecstatic.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you all so much for your wonderful questions also to all of the devotees. It was really nice, and comments. And thank you again, Krsnadas Kaviraj Prabhu. And please accept our obeisances. Thank you.
Yes, if I can ever be of service, just let me know. I
Jai,
know,
thank
I know
you.
I'm trying to serve in my little way, you know, being on the board and stuff, but you know, just call me up and say, hey, Krishnadas, we need you to do this.
You need to tell us what we should be doing. We follow your lead, Prabhu. Thank you. So dear devotees, right now I guess we're gonna have some kirtan. Mother Anandamayi and Dina Gauranga Prabhu, are you set up there?
I'm gonna have to sign off as much as I'd really like to. I've got another, I've been on the summit thing all afternoon, and I was actually talking to the Calgary devotees this morning, then class now, and I've got a deputies meeting starting at 1 a.m. tonight. So I'm sorry, but I gotta go. But
Yes,
thank you
please.
all.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Haribol.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Haribo.
Haribol, over to you.